Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast powered by Riverwind Casino. That's Parker Thune. My name is Brandon Drum. A lot of portal stuff to talk about. We got basketball tonight, Oklahoma, Texas A&M. Parker, there is defensive coordinator talk. Like, there's a lot to go on here. And we're going to probably do it in a more condensed manner for you guys on this version. I hope you guys enjoy that. But we got to get on the road to the Navy All-American game and the Combine down in San Antonio that we go to every year. So we're going to do a little bit more condensed here. Parker, before we get into all of that, and I mean, there is a lot to talk about, let's pay some bills.
Yes, folks. Obviously, this podcast is brought to you today and every day by the great folks at Riverwind Casino. And Sooner fans, you deserve the ultimate gaming experience. Riverwind Casino has been the Metro's premier gaming destination for over 18 years. 2,800 electronic games, table games, bars and dining options, plus the best live music in the Metro. It's no surprise that Riverwind is always a good time. Appreciate Riverwind for their partnership. This podcast also brought to you in part by Prize Picks. And hey, if you woke up feeling dangerous and you want to get started on Prize Picks, Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers play a Washington Commanders team that they already beat in the regular season at home on Sunday night this weekend in NFC wildcard action. You can roll with Baker to go with more than his projected passing yards and or passing touchdowns totals. And that's a real easy way to win some quick money on Prize Picks, where you just pick more or less on at least two players and their projected totals for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's playoff time, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. Again, you can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks, which now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. So download the app today and use code OU Insider to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, code OU Insider will get you $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Also want to bring to your attention, folks, the Rocket Money app. If you have not yet downloaded the Rocket Money app, which I did in the past week or so, it is life-changing, especially if you just have trouble tracking all of your expenses, all of your subscriptions. Rocket Money can help find a subscription you forgot about, cancel a subscription for you, alert you to an increase in subscription price. It's a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon. rocketmoney.com/gameon. Okay, Brandon, let's jump in.
All right. Oklahoma, since obviously, I guess we did the live and Marvin Jones Jr. had committed, and trying to think what else has gone on in this world because I'm so fixated on the defensive coordinator right now. Obviously, Kendall Daniels committed, and Logan Roberson, former Choctaw.
Jeff Roberson,
excuse me. Logan's
the older brother.
Logan's the older brother, yeah, that played at OU for a little bit. Jeff Roberson is visited Oklahoma. I guess we'll see where that goes. He's a former middle linebacker for Choctaw and at Oklahoma State. Second leading tackler. Oklahoma not only got the first leading tackler, they're going to get the second leading tackler on the season for Oklahoma State. Bedlam is still going on, Parker, even though they don't play each other, as Oklahoma continues to ravage, I guess, Mike Gundy's roster, unfortunately for them.
Oklahoma State is OU's farm team at this point, I guess.
It has felt like that for a while. I know that they ended up with Caleb
Hicks.
Caleb Hicks, yeah, and
Gavin
I don't
Freeman.
know. And Gavin Freeman. Did Gavin even play this year?
He played very little. I think he redshirted.
So I mean, there you go. And Oklahoma ended up with Trace Ford. Obviously, now they got Kendall Daniels. They've got a potential to get uh, Jeff Roberson as well. Um, what are your thoughts on these pickups? I guess defensively, everybody was mad, and I'll get into what my point is here in a minute. But everybody's mad on the lack of spending, right? They went out and spent a whole bunch on Mateer and
Yeah.
a whole bunch on Derek Simmons, and then they just decided, oh, they don't want to spend a whole bunch. Well, Isaiah Satania costs quite a bit of money for people that don't know that. Like he was pricey with who OU was going up against for him. Um, I believe I want to say Giovanni Gibson was quite pricey as well. And then outside of that, it was more retaining, right? Like it was retaining is what they spent their money
Well,
on.
and you mentioned this on the live stream, and uh, I believe our social team clipped it and ran it on Instagram and Twitter because it was a really good point that you made, which is that
Was
retention costs money.
yes.
Retention costs money, and ultimately, you can no longer consider it a given that your exact same roster, or at least the portion of your roster that returns, is going to come at the same price as it did the previous year. Guys like Jaden Jackson are going to cost more. Guys like Eli Bowen are going to cost more. Um, Certainly, guys like Xavier Robinson are going to
Oh
cost more
yeah.
based on his breakout performance down the stretch. And so, in order to keep your roster intact, you have to spend more money every single offseason.
Hmm.
That is, if you have a roster that you can feel good about going in, like perhaps you're in a situation where you lose enough pieces to the draft or the transfer portal that you're spending less than you were the year before. But if you're spending less, the expectations are probably significantly diminished, and that's not a place that Oklahoma can afford to be right
Hmm.
now. And so they have to keep their nucleus intact. They have to make sure that the guys that played good football in the Crimson and Cream this past fall are taken care of and they're satisfied and they're ready to return and be cornerstone contributors in 25 and beyond. And so that's where it has to start.
Yep.
And from there, you can add the bells and whistles to your roster via the transfer portal. I think Oklahoma has started to do a really good job of that here late in the cycle with guys like Marvin Jones, guys like Kendall Daniels. Jeff Roberson, if Oklahoma lands him, that's not necessarily an earth-shaking addition, but
No, but it's
it's
depth.
it's depth. It's a guy with experience. It's a guy that has developed a reputation for just making the right play over his 5 years at Oklahoma State. Uh, Somebody that can be an ace special teamer. And as we've seen in the last few years, special teams matters. And it's an area in which Oklahoma has struggled at times. And so you get a guy that's experienced and a weapon in the realm of special teams and somebody that can give you situational snaps at linebacker, somebody that isn't going to, for instance, blow the assignment and allow a 95-yard touchdown run, just to pick one example.
Yeah.
That's a guy worth rostering, right?
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, look, the at the end of the day, you need guys that are going to make plays. You need guys that are going to help during practice, and I've seen it pushed, right? I've seen this trend starting to get, I guess, momentum on Twitter, and that is the practice squad. And apparently the NCAA is going to make another. From what I was told by a couple of people, they're going to make another push for maybe upping the scholarship limit again from 105 to maybe 115.
Ah, great.
And
A constantly moving target.
no, no, no. Well, and I think that's where it'll probably settle at. But the reason they're doing it is because they don't have a practice squad hardly anymore. And that's kind of the coach's point. And they're like, you've dwindled our practice squad. Now it's our second string getting beat up by our first string, or our third string getting beat up by our first and second string, and you're killing our depth.
Imagine that. Decisions by the NCAA running into roadblocks that were very easily foreseeable. A
Oh,
tale as old
yeah.
as time.
Yeah, 100%. And so supposedly this summer you might see it pop back up to 115. That's why Oklahoma is they're under the scholarship limit right now, but that is also why they haven't cut bait with a lot of their walk-ons either,
Hmm.
because they see it coming. Like they see what's down the horizon and they're trying to play this as smart as possible. And there's a lot of teams that are in Oklahoma's boat, same boat as Oklahoma, that are they're trying to play the long game with the NCAA and not jump to conclusions and get down to that 105 too fast. Luckily, the SEC did their own thing. They're like, no, man, we're doing the 85 scholarship and you can have 120 on your roster. Like
As,
that's what they did. So,
as I count it right now, via our scholarship chart at OU Insider, the Sooners have 2 scholarships left
mhm.
that are unaccounted for. They have 83 of 85.
And
So,
I'll tell you where they think they're going to head. There's three spots that they want those to go to. Three: linebacker, D tackle, well, four, I guess. Wide receiver, O line. That's where they're at.
okay. So you got,
Um,
and I would think it's got to be D tackle and linebacker
it
with
does.
the,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
like Owen Wafel, whom we've discussed, is a guy that Oklahoma hosted last week for an official visit. Sooners are battling Penn State and Rutgers there. Um, and then of course you have Jeff Roberson in the mix, but you don't have as much of a need in terms of sheer numbers at wide receiver and offensive line as you do at defensive tackle and linebacker. Oklahoma
Mhm.
needs, well, not doesn't need, now that you got Kendall Daniels, but you'd like to have another linebacker. You'd like to have another defensive tackle, which is probably, again, if we're just talking critical mass, that is probably the most shallow position group on the roster relative to what you need at that spot.
Mhm.
Oklahoma has, heading into next season right now, 6 scholarship defensive tackles. It'd be great to have another one. But you have 13 scholarship receivers, you have 16 scholarship offensive linemen. So it would stand to reason that defensive tackle and linebacker would be the priorities for Oklahoma as they look to fill those 2 final scholarship spots. And so I think that's why you're looking at OU potentially adding Owen Wafel and potentially adding Jeff Roberson, which would make a clean 85. And at that point, you're pretty much done in the portal, unless you want
Yeah.
to push some more guys out.
Yeah. And there will be some more attrition. I think that's a given, right? After spring,
Mm-hmm.
somebody's going to be upset about where they stand. Maybe they were a second stringer, maybe they were a first stringer last year, and that's not the case going into 2025. So there's going to be um, some attrition there. Um, I'm getting a phone call right now, and it's the trainer for Mateer, and he wants me to come cover him training him, which I'm going to do. I'm going to do.
I would hope so.
Uh, yeah. Before they get everything ready to go for the winter, but um, look, here's the other thing that Oklahoma and fans need to realize a little bit is that you either pay up for our Mason Thomas or you're stuck with Marvin Jones Jr. and PJ and Danny Okoye as your edge rushers essentially next year. And I know it's like a no brainer, right? To pay up for our Mason Thomas, whatever he wants, you give him, right? But there's a world where that's not possible. If you go out and spend way too much money in the portal, and that's my point, you can't do that. You can't keep the guys you need to have. And you credited me for that statement, but that was Josh Pate all the way. Like Josh Pate said that, and I was like, dude, that was so good what he just said. Because we run into that issue with the fan base and even ourselves. Like we think, like, what the heck is Oklahoma doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are they not going after that? But and then I'll make a phone call to a couple sources, and they'll be like, bro, like, you understand we spent this much, this much, this much, and this much on retention. What money are we running? Like, you're hovering $20+ million right now on the roster. Like that's insanity. And it's insanity. Like I can't and it's gonna get more, Parker. Like people think just because it's in house and they're getting revenue share, that revenue share is just gonna go on top of what the collective does. That wasn't how it was supposed to be, by the way. It's supposed to be revenue share, and that was it. And you had like a cut rate of what you could spend. And now it's both. So these dudes are going to make even more money after July 1st. Insanity, bro. To be a college athlete in 2024, 2025 is pretty special. What was your take on Marvin Jones Jr.? Like, what's your expectation for him?
My expectation is, well, and I think should be that he plays the best ball of his collegiate career this fall at Oklahoma because
Agreed.
you have seen flashes at Georgia. You certainly saw flashes this past year at Florida State, but you have not seen the consistent winning, the consistent dominance that you expect from a guy that was regarded as a five-star talent coming out of high school. And there's no reason why he can't, especially opposite R. Mason Thomas, who's going to command a ton of attention from opposing offensive coordinators just to account for his very presence. There's no reason why Marvin Jones on the other side, given his physical ability, can't approach 10 sacks, I think. I'm not saying that's necessarily the expectation that I have, but all other factors under control, with the athletic specimen that Marvin Jones is, the coaching that he's going to get from this OU defensive staff, in addition to the fact that he's lining up across from, or I should say opposite of, one of the best defensive ends in the country, there's so much opportunity for him to really make a statement as a senior in 2025 as a Sooner. I don't know what his best ball looks like statistically. I don't know what that looks like in terms of productivity, but I believe we should see and will see the best version of Marvin Jones that we have seen yet as a
Agreed.
college football player.
Totally agree. And I'll tell you what I was told by somebody that had been around him since through middle school all the way up through high school. And their exact words were he had culture at Georgia, but he never got the chance to be consistently in the lineup for 2 seasons. He rotated because they were so talented. He made plays while he was there. He got sacks and made plays and played in national titles. I believe he won a national title at Georgia. Did he not? Am I wrong?
He
He
did
did,
win a
didn't he?
national title there, yes.
So, and they were like, well, and I said, so what's the issue? And it's just gonna give fans a little queasiness, but it shouldn't, because I'm gonna explain on the back end of it. They said, well, Marvin is kind of an introvert, which means he's not out there leading. He's more of a follow the trend of the team type guy. And whether good or bad, that's just how he has operated. Now, this person did say he has grown up quite a bit since I want to say probably October. And that's where things started to shift for Marvin. And that's where his best games happened, was after, like, when things got really bad for Florida State, he actually started to step up and get better and better and better. And that's why Florida State fans were they were very upset that he left, because they thought maybe he was on the precipice of having the season you're talking about, Parker.
Mm-hmm.
This person goes on to say Brent Venables, his culture, the expectation is what he would have had at Georgia had he stuck it out and continued to play and moved up in that depth chart. And now he has it at Oklahoma. He's got that one shot, and they said he is on fire for it, like ready to rock, ready to roll. And he knows what he has opposite of him. Obviously, he had Patrick Payton opposite of him at Florida State, but Patrick Payton got caught up in the money, from what I was told last season.
Yeah.
Did not do what he needed to do. And that was a culture thing at Florida State.
That was very much a culture thing at Florida State.
So I agree. You're going to get the best version that anybody's seen of Marvin Jones. And I'm not saying that because he's at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I'm saying it because that's what everybody saw coming. And Florida State was like, okay, you're starting to see this dude rolling, and now he's gone because he didn't like what was going on there. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the maturity part and the growing up part. Is he didn't like the culture that was going on there. And even though that's where he grew up loving, that's where his dad played and was a superstar, He knew what was best for his career was to get out from underneath that
Yeah.
and go someplace else that can get him to the NFL and make him reach the potential that he needed to be. That's a win-win for Oklahoma. I Their edge rushers are scary, Parker.
Hmm.
Scary.
Well,
And they're
and
scary in a sense that we haven't seen a healthy PJ yet. Not one time in his career at Oklahoma has he been fully healthy. So you got to hope for that. Two, everybody you talk to talks about how Danny Okoye probably should have played last year and played a lot, but they were wanting him to develop, mature a little bit more. And they said that's exactly what happened at the end of the year. Bowl season, they said he was a dog.
can you think of a guy in recent years that has gotten out of a less than stellar cultural situation, come to Oklahoma, and experienced a productive boom? There's one guy in particular I have in mind.
Eric Gray.
Eric Gray. Eric
Is that
Gray.
really who you're thinking of? Okay.
Yes. And you saw it, like he was the handcuff to Kennedy Brooks in
Hmm.
2021, gets the chance to be the chief guy in the backfield in 2022 and runs for 1,300 yards and was probably Oklahoma's best player that year.
Yeah, no, probably.
And so my point is this. Nobody going into 2022, nobody really had those expectations for Eric Gray.
No.
We all knew he was going to be RB1. We all figured, okay, there will be an increase in productivity that comes attached to that. I don't think anybody imagined that he would have wound up with multiple 200 plus yard games and
Yeah.
1,300 total rushing yards on the season. I can't even recall how many touchdowns he rushed for. It was a lot. But the point is, regardless of what the public expectation is for Marvin Jones, if he shows up to Oklahoma and plays his best football, whatever that looks like, again, given that he is a former 5-star, given that he has every athletic tool you could possibly want in a defensive end at the collegiate level, and certainly a guy that has an NFL future, if that's what you get, if you get a an increase in the caliber of play from Marvin Jones, in line with what you saw from Eric Gray, just by virtue of the fact that now he's in a situation where he has the opportunity, and not only the opportunity, but the support to really shine, then you could be looking at an Oklahoma team that legitimately has one of the best pass rushes in the nation. We know what our Mason Thomas is capable of. We've seen it. Again, you don't really know what Marvin Jones is capable of. If
Yeah.
if this thing goes through the roof for Marvin Jones, that's going to be a pretty terrifying proposition for any offense that has to deal with that duo of rushers coming off the edge when they play Oklahoma.
Yeah, no. He's got a chance, like you said, to just be I expect him to be a 7-8 sack guy this year. Um and maybe I'm undercutting it a little bit just because he's opposite of our Mason Thomas, and I think our Mason is gonna yeah, and we're looking at it from a Marvin Jones point of view. Like, think about our Mason Thomas, and this isn't a slight at Ethan Downs or anybody like that. Ethan Downs is one of the greatest Sooners as far as loving the university, playing hard for the university.
Yeah.
And he obviously was all conference back to back years in the Big 12. Like, he is everything that you want and that Brent Venables looked for in a player at OU. And to me, he will always be one of the all time greats in the fact that his love, his heart, and the way he played for Oklahoma was undeniable. And people can go with production, fans can go with production. I don't care about all that. I loved how much he loved of you. And so, anyway, he was good too, by the way. Like, I don't think that's
Yeah.
like he
Well,
was really
Ethan
good.
Downs, his game as a defensive end was run support, which he was really good at,
Awesome
and
at
also
it.
just creating pressure. He
Yep.
didn't get home as often as our Mason Thomas did, but he consistently created pressure.
He got a lot of people a lot of sacks though, because he
Hmm.
got back there and forced the quarterback up in the pocket or made him flush out to them. Like that was his thing. Um, but like I said, we're looking at it from a Marvin Jones perspective. think about it from an R. Mason Thomas perspective. He had to be smiling ear to ear because he's like, you know what, man? I'm either going to have Marvin Jones Jr., PJ Adebawara. Did I do that right? Close?
Adibawara.
Adebawara. Oh, I did it.
No, you
Okay.
didn't. You came close.
Oh, okay. Jackass. Uh, um, and then Danny Okoye opposite him, and he knows. Everybody kind of knows what those guys are. He has to be smiling ear to ear, thinking, "Dudes, like I lost Ethan Downs, and I still have cats across from me that are going to cause problems and flush the quarterback out towards me."
Mhm.
That's got to be like he's got to be so happy about that. And then obviously what is in the interior is going to help him out because you can't really slide up in the pocket with what Oklahoma has at defensive tackle. That's scary. So from an R. Mason Thomas perspective, he's got to be super happy with what Oklahoma did in the not just the portal, but in the retention part of the roster and bringing back all those superstars because David Stone wasn't cheap. Jaden Jackson's sure as heck wasn't cheap. Dominic Williams sure as heck wasn't cheap. Grayson Halton sure as heck wasn't cheap. Like I just named four dudes that have like all conference potential. Parker at defensive tackle.
Mhm.
The one thing Oklahoma can do, they can SEC on the D line, huh?
They're going to have a strong defensive line next year, and they're going to have a deep defensive line.
Oh,
You know,
it's even better than this year. That's crazy to think about because we were like, dude, this defensive front's awesome.
it's interesting to consider the reality that in 2025, the biggest question mark on Oklahoma's defense is probably going to be the linebacker group, isn't it? Like, and you have an absolute stud in Kip Lewis that's going to be lining up at that position. So, like, that's not to say it's a weakness, but you know what you got in the secondary, and you know it's going to be really good. You know what you got on the defensive line, and you know it's going to be really good. I guess the only real question for this defense is, okay, who steps up alongside Kip Lewis at that linebacker spot? Is it Kobe McKenzie? Is it Jaron Kanik? Is it Samuel Masigo? Um, is it maybe a younger guy like Taylor Heim or James Ness, whoever it may be? That's really the only question at this point for this unit is who is going to be the answer alongside Kip Lewis? Kip Lewis has to slide into Danny Stutzman's shoes. That's a pretty significant role. Those are
Yeah.
large shoes to fill. Who's going to be the new Kip Lewis? Who's going to slide into the shoes that he leaves behind in order to inherit Danny Stutzman's role as the heart and soul of this defense?
I would assume they want it to be Kobe McKenzie and Kendall Daniels, right?
Does Kendall Daniels play a ton of actual linebacker next year, do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they brought him in as, from what I'm told. Now,
Okay.
that doesn't mean that they're that's where he ends up, but that's what they're thinking because obviously Oklahoma State played him mostly at linebacker.
That's true.
I'm not as a freshman, but after his freshman year, he was almost purely a linebacker,
Yeah.
sophomore and junior season. So, um,
There's going to be a lot of Kendall at that cheetah spot between Dolby and Daniels.
there is. And oh, you want to know who we're not looking at and probably totally overlooking, and
Who's
that's
that?
on me. Totally overlooking, and I think he's going to be special before he leaves Oklahoma. Samuel Mosigo.
Mm-hmm.
Think he's going to be special before he leaves
Like,
Oklahoma.
if you ask me straight up, who's starting next to Kip Lewis week one in 2025? All due respect to Kobe McKenzie and Jaron Kanik and Kendall Daniels, all of whom are going to play, right? But I think Samuel Masigo is the best of the bunch.
I I think he's the most gifted athletically. Um, I think Kobe McKenzie has it mentally. Just he's so smart, and he just when he hits you, you don't move. Now he's got to continue to get better at playing in space. But lucky for him, the SEC isn't as wide open as the Big 12, and that's why he played so much more this year than he did in previous seasons. I There is a part of me that thinks Kobe McKenzie has a career year next year.
Mm.
I'm a big fan of Kobe McKenzie, though. He's worked really hard. He's an OU guy through and through, and you always go for those guys. And so is Sammy Omosigho. I mean, that dude is Boomer Sooner through and through. So, um, I hmm. But throwing Kendall Daniels into the mix here just kind of throwing me for a loop a little bit
I know, yeah, because
because
you can't really
because
figure
you look at his
exactly.
stats and you're like, oh my gosh, like how is he not going to start next to Kip Lewis?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be interesting. Either way, what Oklahoma did, and what if they pick up Jeff Roberson on top of that?
Yeah, what
You've
if?
just made that linebacker room pretty special again. And everybody wants to say, well, Jeff Roberson, bro. Jeff Roberson was a good player at Oklahoma State. Let's not get it twisted. Like fans, y'all want to say whatever.
Yeah,
He
and
was
you're not
second. He was second in tackles behind the guy that Oklahoma got,
there.
and
There
Kendall
aren't many
Daniels.
all conference dudes at linebacker that are just sitting there in the portal waiting for
No,
somebody to come pick them up. So like it, with the options that are currently on the table, Jeff Roberson's about as good as it gets. It's a 1 year commitment, right? You kind of count on the same thing with Jeff Roberson if you land him as you are with Marvin Jones, which is that they're going to show up and they're going to play the best ball of their career. That's a reasonable expectation for a guy that's going to be playing his 6th year of college football in Roberson's case. It's more than reasonable expectation. Show up to
yeah,
Oklahoma, play better than you've ever played before, add
yeah,
value.
and that's what happens with these. Everybody wants to talk about these portal players that end up making all conference, and they come from Power Four. Blah blah blah. How can you get an FCS guy that is going to do this or that? Isn't there like a bunch of FCS dudes that jumped up to P4 programs and end up being all conference and or all Americans over the last few years?
There is certainly precedent.
Yeah. So I mean, he's a Power Four guy and a productive Power Four guy,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to the point that Oklahoma almost offered him out of high school. Or did BV actually offer him late and he just chose to stay with Oklahoma State? Is that how that went?
No,
I
you're
can't
thinking of
remember that.
you're thinking of Jake Clifton. That was the guy in
Out
the
of Wasso. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
2022 class that Oklahoma kind of kicked the tires with, but chose not to pursue. But Jeff Roberson, he was class of 2020, Brandon. So that would have preceded BV by
But
two
no, but I
years.
thought Odom almost offered him.
Did he?
I'm pretty
I don't know.
positive. I would love Kel Gundy to hit me up and tell me one way or the other because I almost want to feel like I remember this, and he'll know better than I because he was a recruiting guy then.
Yeah, shoot, I was
Um,
still in college back then. I don't remember.
yeah, I feel like Gundy was really high on him, but they just nobody could agree on it as far as offer and not offer, and he ended up going to Oklahoma State. So um, either way, if BV would have been in the coach, then OU was obviously offering him. Um, he's a linebacker. He's one of the top players in the state of Oklahoma in 2020, and he was a white linebacker. So I kid, I kid, I kid. That's a running joke with OU fans right now. I kid, but seriously, um, no, for real, no. He could ball. That's why. That's why. Like he reminds me of a Brent Venables linebacker,
Because he's
like a
white.
lot. No, but it's really hard to get out of that web. Either way, if I would have said that, you would have said that, even if I didn't say the white part of him. Well, he reminds you of Brent Venables linebacker because he's white. um, Point being is that yeah, he was Brent likes to offer the in-state kids, and we've seen that. I talked to somebody yesterday, and they said Oklahoma's on the road today, and that this staff is out scourging the OK preps because the last staff didn't do a very good job of it. So I don't think that's wrong. It's very
No,
true,
it's certainly
actually.
not inaccurate.
It's facts.
And it's
It
been a
wasn't a
priority
shot.
for
It
this
was
staff.
it was a factual statement.
Yeah, it's been a
So,
priority for this staff for 3 years now.
and they've done a good job of it.
Mhm.
Um, what Kendall Daniels? We've been talking about him. What's your expectations for him? Because for me, he just walked into the best defense possible for him. Potentially.
Yeah,
Actually, you want to know who the best defense possible would be for? Is like BV at Clemson version, the Isaiah Simmons
hmm
cheetah version.
yeah, it's
Can
tough
they
for
replicate that?
yeah, it's tough for me to figure exactly what you get out of Kendall Daniels in 2025 because I struggle with it a little bit. You know, is he just the new Desan McCullough or I I don't know, man, because he is so versatile and he's capable of playing so many different spots in this defense. But have we seen a guy at Oklahoma during Venables' time here that's been able to balance the responsibilities of playing multiple positions and well? Because we all thought Desan McCullough was going to be that guy, right? Rush off the edge sometimes, play inside backer sometimes, play cheetah sometimes. Heck, maybe you shift him back to safety at times. And ultimately, what Desan McCullough became was pretty much just a straight up cheetah. And he eventually ceded that role, at least in a starting capacity, to Kendall Dolby. And so, is it to Kendall Daniels' benefit, and is it to Oklahoma's benefit to try and have Kendall Daniels repping at different spots, several different spots, or is he just somebody that he walks in and you say, "Hey, look, we're going to let you focus on one thing. We're going to let you focus on one spot, and we're going to count on you playing your best ball at this spot, be it cheetah or be it linebacker." You know, I don't really, I don't really know at this point what that looks like or what that dynamic is going to be when he shows up,
Yeah, that's
because we all had such high expectations for Desan McCullough because of that versatility component. And not to say that Desan McCullough played poorly at Oklahoma, but because he didn't, but he just never really lived up to those expectations. And so we heralded Desan McCullough 2 years ago as the Swiss Army knife in BV's defense that was going to be an integral piece of everything that they were doing schematically. And I kind of want to temper those expectations and not replicate all of that once again with Kendall Daniels, because I just I don't know that it's fair to have that expectation. He's going to come in, he's going to do a little bit of everything, and he's going to provide value wherever you might put him.
mhm. Yeah, I think he is too. I
I
think
think he's capable of that, to be clear.
yeah.
I just don't want to put too much on him.
No, that's fair. I mean, learning BV's system in 1 year is tough as it is.
Exactly. Is it going to be
So
BV's system though?
don't do it. Don't do it. What system would he be comfortable in, Parker?
Hmm.
Why all of a sudden are they going after all these Oklahoma State defensive players?
They're bringing in the Nard dog, baby. Oklahoma defensive coordinator Brian Nardo.
There you go. There you go. That's the oh man. Let's talk about the defensive coordinator. We went there. Let's go ahead and segue into that before we cut off here. Thoughts, concerns, expectations. I'll
We'll see
I'll
what
give you the
happens.
floor and I'll follow you up, but you got that more than let's just see what happens. I'm not you're not throwing me to the wolves like that, bro.
I mean, look, if if Brent Venables isn't calling this defense in 2025, it's going to be somebody that is more than worthy of having BV's full trust and confidence to run their scheme and run their system. And if that guy doesn't jump at the opportunity to join the Oklahoma staff, then I think you can count. Like I don't know. I would assume that the linebackers coach at that point would be Wes Goodwin. I would assume that's the hire that they would go and make, or they'd just keep it in house and promote James Skalski. One way or another, I think you're either looking at Oklahoma bringing in a top tier defensive mind and somebody that's going to be pretty pricey, big swing. Uh, you connect on the swing, you hit the home run, whatever euphemism you want to use there. If Oklahoma can't hit the home run with the hire, then I think BV is at the controls in 2025. Now, it almost kind of feels like the Dan Mullen situation all over again, where, as we've discussed, there's a guy that Oklahoma would love to have calling the defense if he wants to jump at the opportunity. And it makes perfect sense that this would be the guy, the type of guy that you go hire for a make or break year like 2025. But what it all comes down to is, are you going to be able to come to terms? Are you going to be able to play the back and forth game with the agent? Are you going to be able to do what it takes to get pen to paper on the contractual agreement? Because Oklahoma wanted to hire Dan Mullen, right? That was an option that was on the table, and very obviously the option that made the most sense, I would say.
So you have 5 sources that confirm that he was hired, though.
I did not have 5 sources that confirmed that he was hired, but obviously there were ongoing conversations between Oklahoma and Dan Mullen. And at a certain point, where Oklahoma got to was, hey, look, this is becoming way too much of a headache. Dan Mullen's agent was Jimmy Sexton. Jimmy Sexton is one of the most powerful agents in the business, and he's going to get the best deal for his clients, right? And so at a certain point, Jimmy Sexton was asking for too much. And we've discussed all of this, right? Jimmy Sexton was asking for too much. Oklahoma said, you know what, forget it. We like Ben Arbuckle a lot. He's not as experienced. He doesn't necessarily have the same teeth in the SEC, but we believe he can help shock some life into this offense. So, and we can hire him way easier than we can hire Dan Mullen. So we're just going to go grab him. And they did. Now, if it gets to a certain point with the big time candidate that Oklahoma is conversing with, where it becomes apparent that, okay, this is just the juice is not worth the squeeze, I guess. Then you're probably at a point where BV just brings in a linebackers coach and he calls the shots. And I like that. I think if that's what it comes to, Brandon, in a make or break year, especially, there are very few people I would rather have calling OU's defense than Brent Venables. Because he's one of the best, if not the absolute best. And there's that extra measure of accountability, right? I'm the head coach. This falls on me. I'm going to call my own defense. I am going to be the one that ultimately takes responsibility for it.
Well, here's the deal. I agree with everything you just said. That was like when Ali first left, exactly what I reported, is exactly what you said, like verbatim. And I know there were others out there that didn't want to believe that, and they were hearing Wes Goodwin, and there were some that thought were reported Wes Goodwin was hired, or expected to be hired, and that was never the case. Like, it was always, there was a one, and then there was down the rung was a two, and that two was Brent Venables being the DC. And yeah, the Brandon Hall situation was in the mix there in between all that, but that was a kick the tires down to see if B Hall wanted it. And I've explained to everybody multiple times why he didn't take it. And it's a dude that loves Oklahoma and just wants to be able to come back if things don't go right. Like, this is his home. He doesn't want a Seth Luttrell situation. He doesn't want a um, what's another situation I'm looking at here where he just can't come back? Mike Stoops, right?
Hmm.
Like those type of situations, just you don't want to be in those
Jeff Lebby to an
situations.
extent.
Jeff Lebby to an extent, but I think fans will let after what they saw. Yeah, which is just crazy, by the way. The Lebby part, I'm sorry, like it's just crazy. Parker, top 5 and top 10 offenses in the country back to back years, and people are people are crazy. Anyways, I love you guys, but that was just crazy. But yeah, the Hall situation was just different, and so now if the ship gets righted, and let's say Brent Venables is the DC this year, you can 100% expect that Brandon Hall will be calling the plays in 2026. And it's been somewhat verbally agreed upon that from what I'm told. So, um, but they're going to kick the tires down the road with a big name or two. And honestly, right now, if I was a betting man, I think Oklahoma goes that route right now. If I'm a betting man. And that's because I think Brent wants to be a CEO. In his heart, he doesn't want to have to feel like he has to hover over everybody and everything. And I think if who we're talking about takes place, one, they run Brent Venables' defense, by the
Hmm.
way. Two, or at least a version of it. Um, two, um, it'll be the first time since BV has got to Oklahoma where he feels comfortable enough that he doesn't have to go sit in the defense room. He doesn't have to go sit in the offense room, and that he can just. It was either he had to go sit in the defense room when he first got to Oklahoma, right, with Roof, and he didn't have to go sit in the offense. And last year he had to go sit in the offense. He didn't have to go sit in the defense because Allie was running his defense, and he felt real comfortable with what Allie was doing, so he wouldn't try to help the offense out. With Arbuckle and whoever the heck they get over there, if it's not Brent Venables, doesn't have to be in that room, and he can go CEO and be a head coach for the very first time since he's been in Oklahoma. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that's where things stand right now. All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast powered by Riverwind. If you're not a member, sign up. OU Insider, $9.95 a month, $9.95 for the whole year. If you're a college student.edu, please email us. You have to have an edu.edu. Email us ouinsider@rivals.com. We will give you OU Insider for a whole year, $11.95. Again, .edu, have to email us from that. Doesn't matter what college. ouinsider@rivals.com. Whole year, $11.95. Same with teacher's account. Wherever you teach, whatever, emails from that account. ouinsider@rivals.com. Do the same thing. $11.95. Military, had a lot of those lately. From your military account, email us, ouinsider@rivals.com. We will email you back a promo code to get OU Insider for $11.95. Subscribe to this YouTube, subscribe to whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Give us thumbs up, give us 5 stars. Thank you guys so very much for watching this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed day.